The Toronto Blue Jays are usually a last minute team when it comes to deadline deals, but the urgency was real when it came to acquiring Jordan Hicks from the St. Louis Cardinals. So we're going to break down the real reason as to why they traded for him and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And Nick, the Jays showed that they're willing to go all in this year at the deadline. They just traded for probably the best reliever on the market, apart from Josh Hader, assuming that he's not going to get traded away by the San Diego Padres. But what an electric move yesterday by Ross Atkins, and it was done pretty much immediately after the game in which Jimmy Garcia had to pitch 3 days in a row out of the bullpen. So the urgency was clearly there for Ross Atkins and company. And this move is something that we've been waiting for a while now.
Yeah, they went all in, and let's break down the real reason behind it, as well as what the return was. If we didn't get to do that in the last video. Before we do, thank you guys for letting us hit 7,500 subscribers. The goal now is 8,000, so make sure to hit that button. And before we get into the real reason, let's just go over the trade real quick. Because again, Peter, we made the video yesterday. It wasn't the return wasn't clear, but we gave up Sem Roberts and Adam Kloffenstein in exchange for Jordan Hicks, who was considered now to probably be the best reliever on the market that is gone, because Josh Hader is looking like they're not going to trade him. The Padres just swept the Texas Rangers, so it looks like they're going to hold on to their players. But Peter, like you said, what a trade, and we'll break down the reason now, which we think is Ross Atkins is going for it. It's pretty simple, and I think he might, make some more deals coming up here soon.
Right, it's a combination of things, and Ross Atkins believes that this team is the one that could get them over the top. They have underperformed at times this year. They have shown flashes of inconsistency. But you look at the American League as a whole, there's no team that is running away with it. The Texas Rangers, very good ball club. Houston Astros, very good ball club. Orioles, Rays, Red Sox to a certain extent. There's a lot of good teams in the American League, but there's no one that is really standing alone at the top. So I think that's why Ross Atkins sees this as a window of opportunity. The core isn't getting any younger. George Springer looks to be in a bit of a decline, unfortunately. So you got to maximize these next couple of years with this roster. And Ross Atkins has never been the one to go for a rental player at the deadline. Jordan Hicks is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. I'm sure they're going to do whatever they can to bring him back. But there's no deal in place right now. So as it stands, he's going to be gone by the end of the year. And you just gave up a couple of good prospects that are controllable, that might have been part of your 40-man roster next year for a couple of months of Jordan Hicks. So it's a risky move. I'm sure there are going to be other moves to follow as well, but the real reason is that Ross Atkins is just going for the fences right here.
Yeah, and then he has a lot of confidence in the team because, like we discussed off camera in other videos, last year, they kind of didn't really make a move as big. This is probably, I think Ben Smith kind of tweeted this, is the biggest, rental in the Ross Atkins era for a trade deadline especially. And I'm surprised that he did it to a degree, but it shows how much confidence he has in this specific group and how, the record's not the best. It's not bad, but it's not the best. So maybe he thinks that the Jays are underperforming. They need a couple pieces to help them get over the top there. And like Ben Smith said, there's still a few more things to do. Added their biggest rentals in years and shows players and fans that this group's worthy of investment, which is the huge thing here, Peter, because it seems like in the past he wasn't, Ross Atkins wasn't 100% sure maybe that this was the group that could win the World Series, say in 2022 and maybe even 2021. But this year, it seems like Ross Atkins has full faith, and he showed it by giving up two, decent prospects, which we'll touch on here more in a minute.
I feel like Ross Atkins in his Blue Jays tenure has pulled all the right strings, and he's made all the right moves at the right times. And he gets a lot of flack for a couple of bad moves, but you can't win them all. And I'm not going to pin those bad moves on Ross Atkins. It happens every now and then. He took a gamble, and it just didn't pay off. But look at the last few years. Houston Astros have been a dynasty, and they've been the cream of the crop in the American League for a long time now. And for the first time in that long time, they look vulnerable. They look like they could be beaten. They look like they might not even make the playoffs. That's how vulnerable the Astros look right now. The Rays, they're a good team, but can they really get it done? Can they get over the top there? So I think that's what Ross Atkins realizes, that this is the time. If they're ever going to do it, this is the year that it's going to happen. And that's why there's going to be a string of moves to follow. And the market might be weak, but the Jays don't need one of those prime pieces at the deadline. They just need a couple of decent additions like Jordan Hicks, like another couple names that I could rattle off the top of my head, but that'll get them over the top. And I don't think they need a Juan Soto or anything like that. Obviously, it helps, but it's not available at this year's deadline, and they don't need it. They just need a couple of those smaller pieces.
Yeah, with the way all their pitching has been, doing this year, I think that's probably another vote of encouragement for Ross Atkins. That if the Jays bats can heat up to the way that we know they're capable of, then of course we have the chance to make a big run here in the playoffs. And we can touch on, Sam Robertson, Adam Klopfenstein a bit here. And this is kind of a key, return. I see a lot of people saying that maybe we overpaid a little bit, but both of these prospects would have required 40-man spots in the winter to avoid the draft, and that would have complicated things. So I believe a reporter went out and said the Jays basically got ahead of this by trading them, knowing that maybe they wouldn't have been able to add them to the roster, or at the very least would have had to get rid of one of them. So you attach another prospect in to get a reliever now that could help win. And who knows if the Jays are going to re-sign Hicks, because if they re-sign Hicks, then it's even a better deal for the Blue Jays, similar to what they did with Jose Brios, who was, considered only a rental at the time as well. But, I mean, the prospects, two mid-tier prospects with not really that high of a ceiling compared to what maybe we thought we would have given up for, the top rental. That's the big thing this, year. Maybe in prior years it wouldn't have costed this much, but he was and is going to end up being the best reliever that was traded this trade deadline. And Ross Atkins jumped on it quick and outcompeted the Dodgers, Rays, and I think even the Astros and Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think Sember Bears is going to have a decent major league career, but you touched on it. His ceiling is maybe a fourth or fifth starter at best, maybe even a third. He could be a third starter, and that's very valuable. That's hard to find in the major leagues. However, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is two years away from free agency after this season. Same thing with Bo Bichette, and you don't know if you're going to be able to retain those guys. So the big period, the big window is these next 2 years, and in just this season alone, in the last couple of months left, Jordan Hicks is going to have a bigger impact than Surma Bears and Adam Klopfenstein would have had on the team. So the goal is to win a championship at the highest level in the major leagues. It's not to have a good double A team. It's not to have a good single A team. It's all about winning at the highest level, and that's what the Blue Jays are trying to achieve here. And I think this move puts them closer to that.
Yeah, and they did that a couple of days, obviously, before the deadline, which is tomorrow. And they kept all of their real blue chip prospects. Even let's say we take Ricky Tiedemann out of the equation, because I think the Blue Jays keep him. But you're keeping Barger, you're keeping Leo Jimenez, you're keeping Brandon Barriera available for potential targets if that one player comes up that the Jays could go for, and maybe a player like Lane Thomas who would cost a bit more, Tommy Pham who would cost a bit less. But it's super exciting, Peter. And do you have any final thoughts on this big package? Because Jordan Hicks and the Blue Jays now have a very, very solid bullpen with four relievers who have unbelievable whip percentages. A bullpen that was once crowned as just a couple years ago, now striking out nobody, is now the best in baseball, which is kind of crazy turnaround from Ross Atkins.
It's just exciting. And we touched on it in yesterday's reaction video immediately after the trade, that there's been an outcry for velocity. And now you're getting the guy that throws the hardest in the major leagues. There's no one that throws harder, more consistently than Jordan Hicks. And I know the walks have been a problem for him, but when you throw 103, your mistakes are not as magnified as they would be when you're throwing 93. So I'm very excited. It's a move that shows the fan base that the Jays are willing to go all in this year, that they are going to go all in, and that they're aiming for that World Series, and that it is World Series or bust. And I love that mentality. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and let's not forget that it's not just 103 with no movement. He has tons of movement as well, because it's a sinker that also touches 101, which maybe differentiates him a bit from someone like Nate Pearson who throws super straight. But that'll wrap up the video. Tons of stuff's going to be coming. We'll have a stream for you guys tomorrow. I'll probably have another video later today. And the Jays are going to make one more big move is my prediction. We'll see how true that turns out to be. But thank you guys for watching. Huge series starts tonight. We'll see you then.